Welcome to Making Change Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining me tonight is John Horesji, who's been a frequent guest over the years on this show and other shows. He is the founder and the coordinator of Social Action Linking Together, affectionately known as SALT. Thank you so much, John, for being with us.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So the last time we spoke was actually on this radio show. It was in November of 2019, and it was prior to the regular 2020 legislative session that started the middle of January, wrapped up the first week in March. And I wanted to check back in with you about what you managed to get accomplished since the last time we talked with you, talk a little bit about the special session that's happening right now, and what you hope to do in the 2021 session. So let's talk about the things, and you work on so many things, John, and you have since 1983 when you started this effort. And it's taken sometimes a decade to get bills and legislation passed through the Virginia General Assembly. But you are persistent, if nothing else, the most tenacious person I've ever met. So let's hear your top success stories for the 2020 legislative session.
Well, it's something that I had worked on for 15 years, and it had passed occasionally in the past. It had gone through maybe the Senate and killed in the House, and vice versa. And I through the generosity of the legislators, I had a patron, a really strong patron each year. I had the legislators come up after with a hearing and tell me that they were really impressed and saw the need for it, but then they went ahead and voted against it. And so this year, and the bill is lifting the ban on food stamps and something called TANF. TANF is for families who are left out and most vulnerable families. And basically what it does is makes it possible for children to be raised in their homes in spite of the family poverty. So in the home of their parents or in the home of their relatives. And so basically this lifting the ban for TANF for them to be able to get food stamps when the parent gets out of prison on a drug felony. And incredibly enough, I just made the discovery that so many of the families on TANF are something called child-only cases. And child-only means they're living with relatives. And we looked at cases and found out that what that means in almost 60% of the cases is that they're living, their grandchildren being raised by grandparents. And they're not living with their custodial parent, usually because one, in about 40% of the cases, one of them is in prison. So this is very significant. Now, why would we want to do this for the parent when it gets out? Because when the parent gets out, it's our issue is that we need to reintegrate the family. The parent needs to go back and take responsibility for the family, but they need some transitional assistance when they get out and they go into the TANF program. They qualify for this assistance because we got this bill in this year. But you know, the other reason that it's good that they're connected to this program and they get this assistance is because it has job seeking and job keeping and job training connections to it. And in fact, they have to participate in these job efforts, but they get this job support, which helps them to be able to more quickly be able to take responsibility for their family and for the family to be reintegrated. And so we're just thrilled to see this success, this family-oriented, this family success
Support.
for families. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these kinds of supports are important. We talk a lot about criminal justice reform, but missing out of those conversations a lot of times is reintegration efforts, and that Virginia is not doing enough to reintegrate people after they've
Yeah.
served their time and support them in transitioning through so many avenues. And I have to say, SALT really is addressing so many of these issues. Another one that I know you're going to talk about is getting an ID, which was a problem when people got out of
Yeah.
jail or prison. And so once somebody served their time, it is up to us as a community, as a society, to support those people and help them reintegrate.
Yeah,
And
and the other thing here is why punish the parent has served their time? Why punish them the rest of their lives when they're in the most need? Their biggest time of need and dependence is when they get out of prison. It takes them time to adjust to their family and to get employed and this kind of thing. So why would we withhold this assistance when it's needed for their successful reentry? And so to me, it's a transitional reentry issue more than anything else, as much as it is family reintegration.
Well, though, for those of you who are just joining us, this is Making Change Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and I'm talking with John Horesji tonight. He is the coordinator and founder of Social Action Linking Together. So reintegration efforts also include the ID. This was a problem. There's been so many problems with identification here in Virginia on so many levels, and you've worked on all of them. But in 2020, this one was particularly specific in giving people who are reentering from jail or prison a real path to get an ID, which is absolutely necessary to get a job. There's a thing called an I-9, and you have to have a form of identification that is government issued to get a job. So not having a government issued ID was a real problem.
It's actually there was a program when we just came up with identified this as a need. We were kind of discouraged from taking a legislative solution. It was said that there already is an existing program, but we checked into it and we found out that in some of the prisons, 15 people got IDs before they got out. The program had no resources, and some prisons hadn't seen anyone come in and help prisoners get IDs in a couple of years. So we decided that was a good thing that they were doing, but it just was so non-existent. So what we did was to get the program expanded to make it meaningful, to be able to reach or begin to be
to make it a
available,
consistent effort,
accessible.
right? Yeah, consistent effort. Everybody,
when they get out, they can't get a bank account. They can't they can't rent. If you don't have an ID, you can't do anything. You can't apply for benefits. You couldn't apply for Social Security. You can't do nothing. You don't exist.
Yep.
So we're getting that ramped up, and I think we may have to go back to try again with this is the importance of data. We go in and show that it's not working and that we need legislation to make it work. So
right. And so let's go back to TANF for a minute, because you have two other pieces of legislation that are also related to TANF. Very important: the family cap and the 15% increase.
The 15% increase is another one where we worked for 15 years, and we're just amazed. This is so big for families, in particular. Virginia has a 3-tier benefit system, and the families in the rural areas that get the lowest benefits, it's almost worse than Alabama and Mississippi. So getting a 15% increase, it's going to take 3 more 15% increases to get up to 50% of the poverty level. We're getting a 15% increase when the benefits are only 20% of the poverty level. So that's what we're doing to families. I don't know how they survive, and this is going to be really big for them in terms of being able to
survive,
survive,
right?
Keep the family together. Yeah.
Nobody is living large.
Well, and what's significant here is I'm finding out that a lot of these kids, because the benefits are so low, the relatives and even some of the custodial parents are just dumping them on the foster care system, and that is horrendously costly compared to TANF. You'd be better off just to increase benefits to a reason, for family support purposes, to give them a foundation, or at least so they could exist, survive. I mean, now they're subsistent, I guess.
True, and then putting kids in the foster care system does not do the children any good.
No, that's not good for children.
It isn't, but I'm sure that families also reach a point where if you can't actually feed the children in your care, then you have to make really difficult choices about what's
hard choices. They're hard choices, yeah.
So tell us about the TANF family cap.
Oh, that's something that Delegate Arid from,
Petersburg, right?
Yes, Petersburg. Thank you. I was blocking for a second. Got through to our surprise. I remember a long time ago when we started, there was a threat to, this was a bill, it passed the House. And that it was simply that if the mom was pregnant, she could claim TANF benefits for the family, but not for the child that is born when she's on welfare. And so I went to Senator Gartland and said, this is going to mean more abortions. And he says, we'll PBI it. And I said, what the heck is that? He said, we'll pass it by indefinitely. He assigned it to a committee where it got killed. So I thought we were free of the thing. But I guess with welfare reform or something, it snuck in. And so we had to go back. And Delegate Arid just came in and got it done.
Well, I'm a big fan of LaCherice Arid. She's amazing. She is. And we've got some amazing people in our House of Delegates. A lot of them are new.
Yeah.
We have a lot of younger people. We have mothers. We have people of great diversity in our House now. And it's just it's a new day in Virginia, I think.
Yes.
And so I think you're finding success that has eluded you for decades, because there are different people sitting in those seats.
We're finding the most articulate and the most supportive are the new women that came in. And, I'd just like to comment, generally, when I started SALT, new legislators, I observed that they were seen but not heard. They knew where the bathroom was and where their office was. These new women, you would think they were, they just come in and they testify with such credibility and knowledge and articulation, and they're winning. They're getting bills passed right and left, good bills.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because, women have a different lived experience, which has been a whole argument for having representation that's not all white men. Is that we have a different lived experience. And the second thing is that, women are coming in and not being told that they should wait their turn. They ran to solve a problem. Most women who run for office run because there is something specific that they are trying to solve.
Yeah.
And they are going to get in and they're going to solve it. And that's
They're
what has
gonna do
impressed
it.
me about the freshman
And
class.
they know how to work the committee. I watch them, and if they detect somebody that is not on board, they go over and talk to them, see how can we amend this to make this work, and they work across the aisle. They have been phenomenal. Yeah.
Well, this is women as problem solvers, John.
Yes.
For those of you who are just joining us, this is Making Change Radio here on Radio Fairfax. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining us tonight is John Horesji. He is the founder and a coordinator with Social Action Linking Together, more familiarly known as SALT. So what else do you have from 2020 you're dying to share with us, John?
Well, I guess we had one more that would go into the area of the criminal justice, and we learned that when a prisoner has a medical problem, if they have to see a doctor, even a nurse, they're charged a $5 copay. And, even if they have a prison job, a legitimate job that they would have to farm out to somebody in the community, somebody who is a non-prisoner, they would have to pay them a decent salary. They get, 10 cents an hour, maybe
10 cents an hour. I know. So it takes 11 hours.
Yeah.
It takes 11 hours work to be able to pay a $5 copay.
Yes.
To see the doctor if you're sick.
Yeah. And consequently, they don't go.
All right.
They pay, and even if they have $5, they want it for a phone call to their 75% of the prisoners have children, so that's so important for them to be in contact with their families, and of course they're gouged on their telephone bills. So, but anyway, we put in a bill to eliminate the $5 copay, and DOC, bless them, came in and said they were waiving it.
Really?
Yeah. So
for our listeners at home, DOC is Department of Corrections.
Yes.
And they oversee the prisons in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Yeah. So the really thing is we're going to have to keep an eye on it, because we don't know if that's just until the next session.
Right.
That's a good thing. And I feel I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody at corrections about it, but I have the feeling that maybe they got some extra money through the Medicaid expansion. Maybe some things are covered that they were paying for now, so they can afford, but they're in a wait and see, whether they can continue this. I think they sincerely want to continue waiving it, not having it, but I do think that there is a prospect that it might be reinstituted. So we're going to watch it. But sometimes the threat of a bill gets something done too,
Yeah, I know. I've witnessed that before, and let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they just didn't sufficiently understand the issue, and now that they do, they took action without having to pass legislation. So with correctional facilities too, let's talk a little bit about the use of isolated confinement.
Yes, I'm sorry, that was another one. That's a really biggie. So go ahead.
Yeah, so let's talk about what that bill is that the governor signed about the use of isolated confinement.
Well, we've had an ongoing battle with the Department of Corrections. They keep saying they don't do solitary confinement, and the isolated confinement, that's solitary confinement, and that they have a program where people can prisoners can participate and have their time in solitary confinement reduced, if they meet their goals. And we were conned into believing that this practically eliminated solitary confinement, but yet they were against their bill to eliminate it for the mentally ill and to reduce it to 15 days for anybody else. And so when they refused, they went the legislators listened to them instead of to us and defeated the bill a couple years in a row. and we had just absolutely an excellent bill based on what New Jersey had. New Jersey had a great bill. Of course, it was passed by the legislature, but the governor then, Chris Christie, vetoed it. But we had the benefit of the work they had done on it. So since they defeated, we said, what are we going to do? Well, since they deny they do solitary confinement, they just give it a new name, isolated housing, and the name changes every other day, but it's the same thing. So we got a bill through where to report. They had to report who went in, how many, how long, and they opposed it, but we got it through. And we found out that during the previous year that 7,122 people had been in solitary confinement. So we tried to get a really good bill where if you go into solitary confinement only as a last resort, you have to have a mental evaluation within 72 hours. And they came in and complained they couldn't afford to pay for all the extra people they needed to do the medical evaluations and the periodic evaluations that our bill required. So they said that the price tag would be $50 million, which is just crazy. It's insane. It's not true. So anyway, we settled for a compromise, which is a standard setting group that includes corrections people, legislators, mental health people, guards, and that passed. So we now we submitted 18 names of people that we think are top caliber, even some people from other states where they've eliminated solitary confinement, to be on a standard setting board that is supervised by a standard setting organization that sets standards for the whole country, for all the states. So anyway, we got that done in the hope that they'll come up with some good standards that'll convince the legislators to go ahead and do what we wanted to do. Is to we know from medical and that being that prolonged
prolonged isolation.
Is torture. It's torture.
It is torture,
yeah.
and it impacts people's mental health, whether they started out.
And our concern too is if a person's in there forever. Patrick Hope found one in there that was in there for 14 years. He was still in. They release them directly from solitary confinement into the community. This is the person who's coming back to your community, angry, hostile, mentally ill from being in solitary confinement. So it's all in our best interest to do something about this.
Well, this is a first step, and we're going to come back to this issue.
We are.
For those of you who are just joining John and I here on Radio Fairfax, you're listening to Making Change Radio. And tonight we are talking with John Horesji, who is the founder and a coordinator with Social Action Linking Together. He has worked for decades, in some cases over 15 years, on a single piece of legislation. And so I like to check in with John occasionally to find out what is next on his hit parade, or if we're still working on the same ones. And, I think it's interesting about this commission being put together with subject matter experts, because so often policy has been formulated based on beliefs, unsubstantiated beliefs about how the world works or how people behave or what is punishment or rehabilitation. And, the more we focus on understanding data and science and outcomes and best practices, the better off all of us are here in the Commonwealth of Virginia to get people ready to re-enter our communities, because they're coming back. And so it's in all of our best interest to make sure that they're coming back whole people, that they've gotten supported medical services and mental health services, that they can come back to their families and feed their children and get a job. And so we really need to be working with John and focusing on some of the things that he, year after year after year, is trying to change. So, John, we've only got like a minute and a half left in this segment, but give us just a brief recap, just a brief taste of what we're going to get in the second half of this show. We are going to come back to this issue of solitary confinement, aren't we?
Yes, we are. We'll look at what's on the table for the next session, the 2021 session that starts, let's see, the first Wednesday after the first Saturday after New Year's.
Okay. And right now, of course, I do need to mention that our legislature is still in session, which is highly unusual. Yeah. But because of COVID-19 and the havoc that it has wreaked on the legislation that was passed, because our regular session actually ended right before everything got locked down. And this has had an impact on revenues in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And some of the legislation that was passed at the first week in March now can't be funded. John is quite fortunate that all of the bills that we just talked about were not unallotted. When the special session reconvened in April, they did not remove the funding from John's bills.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is something that we really
consider ourselves to be survivors.
Yeah, truly. And I again, I have to point out that, John and Saul are focused on the poorest people in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I was so amazed. I cried. I couldn't believe it. I kept saying, to my sources, I said, "Are you sure it wasn't unallotted? Are you sure?" And then I saw that the governor actually signed it, so I knew it wasn't unallotted. He signed it, so I knew that we were funded. So, and the funding is not that great when you consider it in terms of the amount. It's very modest, but it does great things for families. Oh my God.
It does. And when we get back from this break, we are going to talk with John further exactly about the difference that he is making. Join us.
Radio Fairfax. What you want to hear, where you want to hear it.
Hi, I'm Marianne Metz from The Melody Lingers On Radio Fairfax. Join me in exploring and enjoying the Great American Songbook. We bring back the wonderful voices of Rosemary Clooney, Bing Crosby, Ella Fitzgerald, Judy Garland, and Frank Sinatra, just to name a few. And we hear some who are still singing for us today. So come listen as the melody lingers on.
The Melody Lingers On every Wednesday at 11 a.m. only on Radio Fairfax.
Join Mike Delaney Wednesday evenings at 9 for a weekly meeting with the chairman of the board, a true American Idol, Mr. Francis Albert Sinatra. That's Simply Sinatra, Wednesday nights at 9 only on Radio Fairfax.
Tune in to the music that has shaped America's most dynamic art form called jazz. Join me, Robin Clemens, on Jazz at Club Paradise on Saturdays from 12 to 1 Eastern Standard Time. Listen in and hear recordings from the legendary masters of jazz and releases from young players who are taking the music forward. Join me, Robin Clemens, Jazz at Club Paradise on Saturdays from 12 to 1 Eastern Standard Time on Radio Fairfax.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
A message to help keep you safe. If doctors told us today that we'd made a breakthrough on COVID-19, saving thousands of lives, we would rejoice. Finally, a good news day. We'd feel less afraid that our loved ones would be struck by the invisible enemy. We'd start to feel hope that we could live our lives again. Well, a mask does all that. We can help protect others by covering our noses and mouths, which is how the virus mainly spreads. Masks are a ticket to freedom, to be out in the world, to getting together, back to work, back to doing what we want. If doctors announced we could save lives today, we would grab that breakthrough with both hands. While we wait for a vaccine, grab the breakthrough that's already here. When we're out, it's masks on.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Making Change Radio here on Radio Fairfax. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we're talking with John Horesji, who is the founder and a coordinator with Social Action Linking Together since 1983, I might add. John's got a lot of experience, and he, in our first segment, talked about some of the triumphs and successes of 2020, but now we're going to ask John what he is continuing to work on through 2021, the legislative session that will start about the second week in January.
Well, I think you can be sure there'll be more activity on the solitary confinement. We'll continue to move. Persistence pays, and we have momentum, and we're making some progress. It's slow but sure.
And you said that some states, though, have actually eliminated it. So look, for our listeners, let's just point out that much of what you are suggesting as far as being a change maker in the Commonwealth of Virginia is not stuff that you're making up out of whole cloth. It's best practices. Yeah. You've looked at other systems and other places and understood that there are better outcomes, simply better outcomes when you do it differently.
I think we identified maybe 5 to 7 states that have practically eliminated. It would have to be a lockdown or incredibly serious situation where they, to prevent them from committing harm to themselves or to someone else where they would do it, but it would be really, truly a last resort. And they probably, they have so few that it's almost non-existent. And I think the best one for that is Colorado. I think Maine was one of the others. I can't remember the other ones, but they're, when we were testifying, I had a list of them. I had some information on them. So anyway, we'll most certainly come back and keep an eye on the $5 copay. We will, I think I expect that the ID situation is not, resources are going to continue to be really scarce when you consider the need, and we're going to have to work on that.
And that's something I think our listeners need to understand. You can say they passed the bill and signed it and gave it some funds. Yeah. But unless you can show it's consistently being, implemented across the board for everybody, then you have to keep going back because there's an accountability factor.
It requires a lot of monitoring, and people will say, well, we're doing IDs, but when you ask them to give you a report on how many and where, you learn that it's pretty non-existent, or it's a token, I guess. So, but we got a couple really, really big ones that we're coming up with that are new. And one is, a few years ago, we were able to get the phone rates, prison family phone rates decreased. And in the General Assembly, they kept assigning our bill to a subcommittee, which was called the killer subcommittee, and anything that went to that subcommittee was killed. And that's where all the criminal justice legislation went. That's why we had such a hard time with our lifting the ban on food stamps and this kind of thing. But basically, the phone bill was killed. And so what we did was we went to the governor. The reason it was so hard to kill, to reduce the phone rates, which were horrendous, was because a huge commission on the phone calls was going into the general fund. And they didn't want to lose up to $8 million.
So they were raising revenue on the backs of incarcerated people, making 11 cents an hour trying to keep in touch with their children. Good job, Virginia.
Yes. So after several years beating our heads against the wall, we went to Governor McAuliffe. That was a new governor, for a new blue wave governor. And it didn't go anywhere. So I talked to a Republican from Northern Virginia, and I asked him to write the governor, and I wrote the letter for him, and he called me back when I didn't hear anything and says, that letter you wrote for me, I'm not going to send it. He says, I got a better idea. I'm going to call the governor, tell him to reduce the rates. Within about 3 weeks, there was an executive order. The rates were down from 90 cents a minute down to 4 cents a minute or 5 cents. So
that's huge. That's a huge reduction.
And so,
and by executive order, take note.
Yeah.
Wow, by executive order.
Yeah. So anyway, again, the lesson there is sometimes working across the aisle really pays. Apparently the legislator, Jim Lemunion, had something that the governor wanted, or something. Anyway, he was able to get that done quickly. And we were meeting with the governor's staff, and as I was leaving, they said, by the way, we have a call from Jim Lemunion. He wants to meet with the governor. Do you know what that's about? And I said, oh yeah, I know.
Yes. And you bring up something important too. This is why they call it politics, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has an agenda, in order to make the numbers work out on the committees, everybody's got to give something to get something, and that's politics, and that's fine. But one hopes that, partisanship aside, that all of us live in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and it's in the best interest of people in both parties to do right by the people in their districts, because every district has people who are incarcerated and children in foster care and families who need TANF and food stamps. And mass incarceration is a big problem in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And this goes back to Jim Crow, and you really see it in the disparity in the percentage of those who are incarcerated being minorities, Black Americans, versus their proportion as residents of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we have to address that. And I know that that there are people, people are really working hard, especially this session, to address criminal justice reform, to address police reform. And you've got a panel coming up a week from tonight on September 17th that is addressing prison reform. And that's, Delegate Kay Corey is going to be on that panel. Yes. And if people want information, they should probably go to your website, I'm assuming.
Yes, absolutely.
So that website is www.s-delegate a-l-t.org. But it's going to be a great panel. So I encourage everybody to sit in on what John and Kay and a bunch of other people are going to be talking about.
And to get information on that, click on the newsletter. There'll be a newsletter with a click on to be able to join the conversation with the delegate Corey and some other top flight criminal justice experts. I'm looking forward to that. So,
and a lot of your 2021 legislative agenda actually is looking at prison reform issues.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So,
and in particular, the video visitation is a replica of the phone problem
issue, right?
Yeah,
it's too expensive.
And the state really isn't getting a kickback, but the rates are just outrageous. They're like for 20 minutes, it's $8, and for 50 minutes, it's $20, and the families just can't afford that. And we know that, you know, the reentry for the prisoner when they get out, the success it depends greatly on their relationship to their families. And here, you know, they can't afford
to stay in touch with those families, right?
Yeah,
They're disconnected. For those of you who are just joining us, you're listening to Making Change Radio here on Radio Fairfax. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we are talking with John Horesji, who is the founder and coordinator with Social Action Linking Together, affectionately known as SALT. And so when we talk about these video connections, we need to explain too that oftentimes people are sent to prisons far away from where their families live.
Yeah.
And people living in poverty really don't have the means to travel. Of course, you can't now. COVID, you cannot see your loved one. You cannot visit your loved one in prison.
Yeah.
So the only lifeline are phone calls and video calls. And the video calls, especially I think for children, make a difference because they can see their parent and their parent can see their children.
Yeah.
So
I visited a program in Dwight, Illinois, where the children were brought by bus. You know, they had to travel a long distance to the prison. And I just remember the children getting off the bus screaming, "Mama, Mama, Mama," seeing their moms. And moms, of course, were at there's a fence around the prison, and they were kind of kissing through the fence. But the kids were just so excited, and it meant so much to them too. And the conversations they had with the kids were just great. There was this kid, Anthony, and his mom said to him, "I hear you're skipping school and getting in fights. What's going on?" He said, "No, Mom, no." He says, "Yes, you are." And see what's going on. He said, "Well, they're teasing me because you're in jail." Well, tell them that I did wrong, that I went to jail, that I'm paying for it. It's okay. I'm going to get out and I'm going to come home. And you got a mom now while I'm in jail, and then I'm going to come home and you're going to have two moms. Tell them you're going to have two moms and they only have one, and they'll be jealous.
That's a good perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way that mom thinks.
So, you know, he came back. I understand he came back for another visit in the future. He said, how you doing in school? You skipping school and getting in trouble? Oh, no, Mom, all A's, all A's.
You know, there is nothing that is more sacred than the bond between a parent and a child. And no matter what a parent has done, children love their parents.
Well, I wanted to share that with you because that's one reason we're trying to get this videos thing straightened out so families can afford it. Now, we have approached them and said, well, you know, some states are using Zoom and it's free, and they keep saying, well, for security reasons and this and that, and you know, and we're not buying, so we're coming back.
Well, you're well positioned to do that because children are going to school over, you know, video. Children are going to school, they're being taught medical, you know, telemedicine. Everything in the world is being delivered via video, and all of us are doing it, no matter how young or how old. Virginians have learned how to do things online, on video, on Zoom, on Google, on all of the platforms. And so I think the time might be absolutely perfect for you to press forward with this on behalf of parents, particularly.
Well, we have a real champion. We haven't worked with her that much, but Kay Corey, she's really on this. She put in a budget amendment, even though that's not a popular thing to do in this special session with the budget cuts looming. And she's
no, she's great, and she's had success before. She passed a bill to provide feminine hygiene products to inmates free of charge, and was successful not only in passing the bill and getting it funded and having the Department of Corrections say, oh, yes, we're going to do this. But there's been a group of people, much like SALT, the Virginia Menstrual Equity Coalition has actually followed up with sheriffs, and they followed up with, people, wardens at prisons to ask if this is actually being done. And so a group of citizens has really been important in making sure these facilities are implementing what Kay Corey got passed.
Yeah.
So,
and if the legislators know that there's some concerned citizens out there, they'll fight for it. Yes. So anyway, the other thing that Kay Corey is doing is putting in a bill to, the prisoners to pay their $5 copay. Working for as much as 28 cents an hour, 29. But we're going to put in a bill to give, these are legitimate jobs. If they didn't do them, they'd have to bring in people from the community and pay them. So we want them bill to pay them the minimum wage, with the first $5 going for their child support, to pay off their court fees and fines and their obligations if they harm somebody and they had to retribute. What do they call it? Restitution. Yeah. So the first $5 would go for that into a fund to repay those, and then the other $2.50 could go into their canteen funds, so for personal needs and stuff like that. So that's going to be the fight of our lives. But if we want people to be responsible when they get out, why exploit them at 10 cents an hour and then expect them to be reasonable and responsible when they get this would go such a long way to prepare them for their reentry, as they would have to manage their money and pay their debts and do the right thing. This would get them on the right track.
Absolutely. And I think there's a moral perspective to this too.
Yes.
For those of you who are just listening in, it's Making Change Radio on Radio Fairfax. I'm your host, Catherine Reed. And tonight we're talking with John Horesji, who is the coordinator and founder of SALT, Social Action Linking Together. So, paying prisoners this amount of money is peonage. And the history of peonage goes way back to Reconstruction. After the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation, and all of these Black Americans were emancipated and freed from enslavement. What happened across the South when the North withdrew and the freedmen's bureaus were closed down is that they were rounded up for things like vagrancy and loitering, and they were thrown in prison, and they built highways and dams and worked in coal mines, and they were leased out to tobacco farms and cotton fields. And so this is peonage. They basically just re-enslaved people through the criminal justice system. And so if you don't understand how we got here with people doing legitimate jobs for 11 cents an hour, then you need to go back and understand history. And I must say, just as a footnote, apparently there is a move in Virginia led by Governor Northam to make sure that Virginia history is being taught accurately and not as it's been taught, for the last 2 centuries. So I bring that to the fore because you really do need to understand that there is an economic model to peonage, just like there is an economic model to enslavement. So John is pointing out that these people are doing jobs. They are producing goods. They are doing something that would otherwise a company or a business would have to pay at least minimum wage. And that's not happening. So So we need to look at this as a moral issue, not just an economic one, a moral issue. People are doing a job. They need to be compensated because even in prison, they have a lot of expenses, not to mention the ones they have for their families and their restitution and their fines and fees outside of the prison gates.
Another really big issue on 2021 that we're taking on, I think we're really getting daring here, is we learned that Lawrenceville is a private prison. We didn't know that. And that it's the worst run prison in the state. It's horrible. And so we have already recruited a couple legislators to put in bills to phase out Lawrenceville and to turn it into a state-run prison, which are head and shoulders better than what's going on there. That's where a lot of problems are coming out. And the legislation will go further. It will prohibit Virginia from having another private prison. So anyway, that's
huge.
A couple really good legislators, and I think that's one that we might probably prevail on. So.
Well, I think there's the climate has changed in Virginia and across the country. Yeah. You know, what would have been an uphill climb 10 years ago, suddenly people are looking at all of this quite differently.
Yeah.
The average person has awakened and to understand that that they don't understand how the system works. They don't understand who's been penalized, killed, really, people's lives taken from them. Over incarceration of Black Americans. You know, it's time that we all sat up and paid attention to this. So Lawrenceville is a private prison, and there's a huge movement nationally to eliminate prison as an industry. How many are in Virginia? You said you weren't even aware that Lawrenceville.
That's the only one. Yes. Yeah.
That's the only one.
Yeah, but we're determined not to avoid any expansion.
That's great. Well, let's take down Lawrenceville. I'm on board. Okay. Take them down. Take down Lawrenceville.
So anyway, so we're excited. We're looking forward already to the 2021 session. So anyway,
and it might be different. As we said, the 2020 session actually isn't even over because this week they are meeting, and they probably will meet next week in special session. And the House is meeting remotely, and so they're actually talking about using video. What can we use video for? Prisoners talking to their kids or legislators making public policy. Look at everything we can do with video. It's a lot. Yeah. So it's important for people to realize we haven't really closed out 2020, and there are substantive bills being heard right now.
Yeah, and by way of reentry, there's so much more that could be done. I visited Tomoka prison in Florida, not as a prisoner.
We're glad to hear that, John.
But they have a Kairos Horizon, which is Catholic inspired, but it's on steroids compared. Most of them, they just pray with the prisoners and bring them cookies. This one, they have anger management, parenting, how to do a resume, the skills, they have to be in touch with their families, either send a cassette or a phone call or write a letter every week. And they have to be in touch with their family, to build a network and a relationship so they have somebody when they get out. So anyway, this one guy told me that his family thought he was, that he was incorrigible, he would never change. And so he hadn't seen them in 5 years. And then he got into this program, and he wrote to his mom and no response, and to his aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters and grandmas and grandpas over a period of time, and no response from anybody. They didn't want anything to do with him. And one day his mom showed up with a new stepfather that he didn't know he had. And she said she sent something that he changed, and he says now she's got everybody visiting him.
Look at that.
Writing to him, and he says when he gets out, he's going to have the most incredible support network that he's never going to get in trouble again. So anyway, that's what programs like that do, instead of people going out hostile and angry and revengeful. So
well, I think, and we need to look at, a lot of people, especially women, like over 80% of women who are in prison have been assaulted.
Yeah.
Sexually, physically assaulted. 80%. What does that tell you about trauma? And so when you look at who is in prison and why they're in prison, a lot of it has to do with criminalizing poverty. And it's about poverty producing people with few options, not enough education or skills, family, parenting, relationships, and feeling like they don't have avenues. And so prison, if they're going to be in prison, then it's in our best interest as a community to give them all the supports necessary to be successful when they get out.
Yeah, and to just emphasize that, it was reported the Tomoka Horizon program that the reentry, the recidivism rate was reduced 33%. Imagine how much taxes that saved,
And the safety of the community. You want to talk about safety in communities? Let me tell you where it starts. Getting people out of poverty and living wage jobs and medical care for everybody. And living wages. That's how you keep people out of prison. That's how you keep your community safe. It's not armed law enforcement. That's not really how it's done. Just my 2 cents worth, because I'm the host and I get to say that. Anyway, for those of you who are interested in attending the panel on prison reform, it is September the 17th, which is a Thursday. You can find information about that on the SALT website, and that is www.s-a-l-t.org, and click on newsletter, and you'll be able to access the live streaming webinar. I don't know, how are you doing that? Is going to be like a presentation, John?
Well, there's going to be some other
there's a lot of panelists. Yeah, there's a lot of panelists. It's
and I don't really know much about them, so I'm kind of a lone ranger. I was kind of surprised to get the invitations. I right away agreed. When I agreed, I didn't know if I was doing it solo or whether.
Well, it's interesting. Like I said, what has really changed is people's interest in this. People want to engage with this. I sense that people really want to be part of the solution. So I want to thank you, John, because you are always a great guest. You always give us the backstory, and it's an exciting adventure. I'm sure you get frustrated, but after 15 years of working on the same bill, to finally say that you planted a flag in it, it's got to feel good. It's got to feel good, John.
Well, I always enjoy your program. It's always, it's always energizing and rewarding and a lot of fun.
Well, we enjoy talking.
I learn a lot too.
Well, that's it for tonight. This is Making Change Radio on Radio Fairfax, and you can hear us every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Thanks for joining us.